Welcome to the Luna Holistic Podcast. I'm your host, Geneva Robbins, and every month on this podcast, we'll talk about Reiki, as well as answering your questions on all things spiritual. We are gratefully located in Calgary in Treaty 7 territory. Thank you all and welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to the Luna Holistic Podcast. My name's Geneva Robbins, and today I have Kim Starr with me. Say hi, Kim.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Geneva.
Good to have you here. Today, me and Kim and I are talking about Reiki for kids and how you can support your spiritual little person that lives with you with Reiki and meditation. At the end, we'll have our rainbow tree meditation, which I've done with my kiddo when he was small. So we'll give you a little tool that you can use. It's great for helping your very sensitive little spiritual being settle before bed or just sort of shake off the day after school, because we are heading back into school season, or are back into school, the swing of school by the time this podcast comes out. But let's start with our collective breath of gratitude, a little meditation just to help you connect. So you can gently close your eyes, as long as you're not driving, and just take a big sigh of relief, letting everything soften and settle, gently letting everything connect in and ground, noticing the earth below you and sending a big wave of gratitude down deep into the earth, noticing that gratitude rebounded and reflected back to you. And just take another big sigh of relief. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kim. How'd that go for you?
So good. So good.
It's a nice little dip into some stillness, which is always great. Even that moment, I think taking that little space in that moment it's so powerful. It's so simple, like you need nothing to do it. And I think that's a really good segue into like how we can support our little spiritual ascended masters that live in small, tiny bodies in our homes. Just how can we support our kids with kind of all of the things they're going through? They're going through different stages and changes. And sometimes children, there's sort of this growing anxiety in kids and in schools, just dealing with change. Like children are always changing. And every day will bring something new for parents and child. And sort of how can Reiki and meditation and sort of helping your kids through all of that change while we're also going through all of those changes too. So that's sort of where we're at today. But Kim, you have some small ascended masters in your house. What have you found has worked for you with Reiki and either being a parent or just like how you support your kids with all the ups and downs of life?
Yeah, I have some very lovely, sensitive children at home, and Reiki has really helped actually. So I find that there's so many things involved, right? It's like you said, it's that brief moment of stillness that we can bring in just by like some deep breaths and just by having a little conversation about calming energy and what that feels like. It's about bringing in affirmations. And yeah, it's just like such a beautiful practice, I think, for everybody. So definitely learning these tools for me has been so beneficial in how my energy is, but also how I parent and the tools that I can offer my kiddos as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that little like deep breath, it's good for you as a parent, I feel. Because if you're calm, they'll be calm. Uh, I find kids often express whatever we repress. So, especially when they're little and they don't have much emotional regulation, they will just, have a really terrible day. But it's often a reflection of how we are inside. And so, one of the things that I often recommend for parents is like get your own sessions. Like a big founding thing of Reiki is that all healing is self-healing and we can't give what we don't have. So if we're not calm or grounded or in our own bubble in our energy, then how can we support our children to be calm and grounded and in their own bubble? It's going to be really, really hard. And sometimes it's a really slippery slope. Like they're having a bad day. You didn't get a lot of sleep because they were having a bad day. And then it just sort of tumbles all down into everybody just needs to have a nap, which is also a great tool always. But yeah, like I always think like for me, and that's been my approach as in my parenting journey is like start with yourself and become calm, and then it's much easier to be that calm presence in your kiddo's life. And that has been really, really good to help me have patience and understanding, and actually like be in a position where I can actually listen to my kid instead of talking over them or telling them what to do and that sort of thing. So doing my own work and learning Reiki has been massive, massive for me. Um, and some people are, just becoming parents and they might be pregnant right now. I can tell you, like I was a Reiki master and pregnant with my son. And what I've heard from people is that you can learn Reiki throughout your pregnancy. All that happens is you end up with a very calm Zen baby. I think you were
Yeah, I have
pregnant.
Lindsay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely like, I love what you're saying about the self healing is so important. It's like being able to hold compassionate space for yourself. It's the same thing in sessions, really, right? Like, it's like if we're doing our own work and we're doing our self healing, then we can hold that compassionate space for whatever the person's intention is. And it's very similar with children as well, right? It's like we want to try and hold that space for them when they're having some of those really, really big emotions.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, definitely like sessions help sort of clear the cobwebs, especially for caregivers of any sort. Like, a really common thing is that you're just sort of at your, you've used up all of your energy, right? Like children can be a lot. And and sometimes when your energy is low or you're not getting great sleeps, Reiki is energy. So you can come in for a session if you're feeling low and depleted and just say, I just need a top up. I just need somebody to like fill the fuel tank. And sometimes people will say that it was like, I think I just fell asleep. And in Reiki, it's a lot like getting, our sessions are 90 minutes and it's a lot like getting a facilitated nap. Sometimes I think of it as a facilitated meditation, but sometimes people just if you need sleep, Reiki will just push you under, but it feels like you had a full night's sleep in a really compressed amount of time. And it can be very, very restorative. And then it also is just sort of like sometimes when we're helping other people regulate emotions so much, it's like those emotions and children's emotions are usually unfiltered, right? So they're just feeling it raw. So when they're angry, they're like fully furious. When they're sad, they're devastated to the pits. When they're happy and joyous, they're as like happy as possible, and when you are also helping to regulate those emotions, you're going on those emotional rides with them. And that can be exhausting all on its own, especially if you are sensitive. And probably if you have a sensitive kid, it's because the apple does not fall far from the tree, right? So here you are, a sensitive soul raising another sensitive soul, and it can be a little bit of a game of whose emotion is that. And you definitely want to like hold space for what your kids are feeling and going through, but you also don't want to hold it. So, Reiki is really great at letting those emotions like flow through you rather than stick to you and helping you ground and reset. And that's definitely something where learning Reiki can come in really big for you if you have a lot of children, or if you find you and your child are both really sensitive empaths and you're passing energy back and forth all of the time and it's getting mixed and muddled. For you as a parent, if you learn Reiki, it helps you stay clear. You learn tools even in level 1 to ground, to connect to the divine, and to protect your aura and your energy field. And those tools they were life changing for me. How about you, Kim? How have you found that?
Totally. I think I've said to you, Geneva, like when I come to work, I'm like, oh, it's my break. Right? Like I feel because Reiki is so powerful, and I feel like my like depleted energy, the Reiki energy works through me when I'm working, and I feel like it fills up my energy center, so I can kind of be that in that calm, peaceful state, and it's like a bit of a recharge, right? So yes, I completely agree with like sometimes it's just you're depleted and you just need some restoration and rejuvenation, and it really, really helps. The other thing is like one thing I think about is that, depending on how old your kids are and how much life experience they have, it's trying to, the one beautiful thing I love about giving Reiki to my kids is that, particularly my 7-year-old, is they don't know that it gets better, right? So they're coming from a space where something's happened and it is like the worst thing in the world that's ever happened, and they don't know that it's going to get better because they don't have that life experience. And so the one thing I really love is bringing in the intention for them, right? That like hope, it's going to be okay. Let's think about how you want to feel. Let's bring in all of the good stuff. So, you can, and the more that I do Reiki with my kids, the more I see that I can see the results. I see firsthand how helpful the Reiki and the energy work is for them. And just also with my children, it's like, it doesn't take as long. It's like a couple minutes and they're like, okay, I'm good now. It's like, oh, I feel so much better. And so that's the really beautiful thing too, is that energetically, I think we were saying earlier, they're already like at such a they operate at a higher frequency anyway. So the energy work that I do with my kids, it's not like this huge process. It's very, very every night if they want it. I give them some Reiki if they're going through some stuff, if they have anxiety, whatever's happening, right? Just a little bit. My son actually says hands when he wants Reiki. So, yeah, and he's only 2.5. And there are times where I ask him and he's like, absolutely don't touch me. So that, right? Like it's the same thing. Sometimes it's not what they want or it's not what they need. they get to make those choices. But definitely the self-healing portion is so important as well, because like you said, if you learn some of those tools for yourself, you're going to be able to teach your kids some of those tools, but also they're just going to feel it. They're just going to feel your energy shift as well.
I often say like all healing is self-healing in my classes, and really like children are such a great example of that, because like they will do not what you say but what you do, and they're very good at their whole way of, the way their brains are wired to learn is that they match and mirror and mimic what you're doing. And so, they're really great accountability buddies, right? Like if you want to learn how to love yourself, just take a look at your kid, because they're only going to love themselves to the extent that you love yourself. When they're born, they're just balls of unconditional love. They're just beaming unconditional love. And you have this amazing opportunity to learn how to love yourself completely unconditionally, the way your kids do when they're little. Teenagers might be a little bit different story, but yeah, they learn their self-esteem from your self-esteem. So that's another part of like when you learn Reiki, we spend a lot of time with affirmations and the work of Louise Hay, because that is such a core part of letting the love that Reiki is it's boosted by, saying kind, nice internal things. And when you do that, they're going to match and mirror that. And yeah, and I agree, like really little kids, they need like, a couple minutes hops. Usually that's why it's like if kids are really little, most of the time the parent needs Reiki, not the kid. If you're okay, they're okay, because they get their okayness from you. So if you're concerned about your kids, like get your own session, and if there's still an issue with your kid, then you can bring your kid in, right? If you don't already know Reiki, kids love Reiki of all ages. I've done Reiki on everybody from babies to 95-year-olds. So everybody's baby loves Reiki. It doesn't matter how old you are. Um, and with sessions for kids, so I just wanted to like kind of cover up how that works here at Luna Holistic. So you just book in under your child's name. So you'll create a profile for your child, and then you can link it. And if you have any trouble with that, you can email us at info@lunaholistic.com, or you can call and we will help set that up for you. Because little kids tend to not want a lot of Reiki, and because we always ask their consent before we do any session, every single time, whether they want Reiki, whether they want touch or no touch, there's always a chance they might just say no. You book them in for a session and they refuse. So we won't do a session on them if they don't want us to. And if that's the case, then you can either get a full refund or you can switch the appointment over to you. So we can book you in for Reiki because that's probably what your highly intuitive child is telling you. And so that's always been really amazing. I find even little kids understand, that they want to feel better. With smaller kids, I usually have the parent in with them. We can do mom and baby sessions, which is really great for postnatal mamas. So if you just need like some support in that, early motherhood couple of months when your baby's small, just bring them in and book a session for yourself, and you can hold your baby and we can give you Reiki, or they can be in the little carrier and you can receive your Reiki and they can sleep so we'll just roll with whatever happens.
Both maybe can sleep, right?
Or you could both sleep. You can just
Totally.
snuggle in and receive some energy. And it's really, really beautiful. With that, we also do Reiki on pregnant mamas. So if you're pregnant right now, um, Reiki in pregnancy is very, very safe. It's like basically a meditation you get help with, and it just helps you feel calm and centered and peaceful. And if you're calm and centered and peaceful, so will be your infant. So children are really good at understanding what they want and how they want to feel. And we'll sort of lead them to an affirmation depending on, or an intention, depending on what they want and need. Um, and it's just all driven by the comfort of the child. So whatever they want. So if they want you in the room, then you can stay in the room. If they want you to leave, you can wait in the hall or go get a coffee or something like that. That's totally fine. Um, and yeah, and it's really great. Really tiny children, I find, will just like grab your hand and move it wherever they want it, so they'll put it on their head, they'll put it on their shoulder, on their belly, like they know where they need the energy. And yeah, and I find they go from, it just helps them reconnect and ground and get into that like radiant, clear space. So, do you have anything to add about that, about Reiki for kids? And
Yeah, I totally agree with you. They're just so intuitive. Working with children, from what I've found is they do really know what they need and want. It's pretty incredible. And another thing that really has helped some younger people that I've worked with is visualization. Just a lot of like visualizing color coming in to certain areas of the body, a lot of visualization of like beautiful sunlight, warm sunlight. How does that feel on your face? Like they can just get there. A lot of times they can just get there really quickly and relax, and we kind of cater it to the age of the child as well. Like I think sessions for all different age groups look very different. But yeah, it's incredible how intuitive they really are. And like you said, when they grab like I've had that experience too, where it's like, especially with my 2.5-year-old, when he says hands, he just grabs my hands. Like he does. He just knows what he wants and what he needs. And it's incredible. So
yeah. Yeah. So as parents, you can learn Reiki. Level 1 is self-healing. So that's going to help you, get grounded and be in your bubble. So that will be helpful just to be and have a self-care practice for yourself. And then level 2 is the practitioner level. So that's where you learn how to do Reiki on other people. So if you're interested in doing Reiki for your kids or your family, you'd want to go to level 2. And we have courses starting every season. So I think our fall courses are well underway. So the next courses will start in January if you're hearing this in September, and we just start them every season. There's 8 classes in a course, and they are 3 hours long. So you get quite a bit of support in learning the material and really integrating it into your self-care practice. And our courses are set up for adults, but we can also teach 16, 17, 18-year-olds. So as long as, you as a parent consent, or if you're listening as a teen, if your parent says yes, then they just sign the paperwork for you and we can get you into the course. Because they are longer classes, we do recommend that it's sort of a nice, mature 16-year-old, because they are in classes with adults of varying ages. Yeah, if somebody is interested in learning Reiki, I feel like it's a really great tool for really spiritual people to have a method to keep their energy safe. Many children, especially, sort of in the 4 to 7-year-old age, they now have language to describe what they're feeling and sensing spiritually. And so they might start talking about, well, like, oh, I see great grandma in the corner, or I will see, they'll describe maybe things that they experience on a spiritual connected plane. They might have spontaneous past life memories pop up. And so basically, Reiki and meditation can support them in their sort of growing awareness of or being able to verbalize their spiritual connection and to keep that spiritual connection safe. So with younger people, what I find is that I don't need to teach them how to connect to the source or to connect to Reiki. They're already connected. They are vibrating at a very pure frequency. What they need is these skills of grounding and protecting their aura and being in their own bubble so that they can protect their sensitivity and they can protect their connection when we're all living in this disconnected world and maybe encountering lots of messages that will pull them away from their connection to their own soul, their own self. And so Reiki can be a really good support for that so that they can retain all of their spiritual gifts, but also learn how to filter it and understand that not everybody in the world is as connected as you, and they may not understand what you're talking about, but that doesn't mean what you're talking about isn't true or real or meaningful for you. It's just that everyone else has a different understanding and allowing them to respect other people's differences, but also respecting their own and retaining their own unique sense of self and identity as they're going through the world, which is, I feel, really good transferable skills of like, how do you connect to your own self and know what's good for you with peer pressure, and all of the bombardment of media that, kids can get themselves into. So you are currently supporting some very spiritual children. Have you felt that Reiki's helped you sort of hold space for some of the stories that are tumbling out now?
The supportive environment. And like, it's funny going back to the self healing, like some of the conversations that I have with my daughter, who's very connected and very spiritual, I have to bring Reiki in for myself, right? Just to be that supportive person for her when she's experiencing some of these things. She's just recently had like a past life. She's recalled a past life. But one of the things that I have come to learn bringing the Reiki in is to listen, right? So it's like I was there to support and I was there to listen because she needed to talk about what she was experiencing and what she was remembering. And so I'm so grateful that this is kind of the path that I've chosen for myself so that I am able to support her. I am able to create that supportive environment. And she is very connected. I love what you said about they already are connected to source. And one thing I think that's really cool about Reiki for kids is like there's so much, distraction and there's so much happening and so much stimulation everywhere. And it helps them to center into who they are and center into themselves, which is something that doesn't happen a lot, right? We're all so busy. There's so much going on and so many after school sports or play dates or whatever it might be that's happening. Older kids, teenagers, like phones and internet and everything. So one thing that I love for Reiki for kids is that it gets them into center with themselves, gets them to connect to themselves so that they can connect to their emotions and they can connect to their physical body. And yeah, so it's like, for me, it's been game changing. I think being able to hold space, I often will say, like, I think that is a massive reason why Reiki was called into my life, was because I do have kids that are very empathetic and sensitive and spiritual, and they need support. So that's what I'm here for, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And mostly like if I think if people are listening at home and they have got a kid that's like having experiences and sharing what they're experiencing, the main thing is just to listen and hold space without, don't get too concerned. It's a very normal thing for them to be able to perceive more than we do. And just helping them that it's normal to see, feel, and hear energies that are greater than us. And so some kids might be able to perceive that and they might be able to express that. So just listening there, if I mean, it definitely like if you're concerned at all, or if it like, you're like, oh, maybe this is, psychiatric illness, like absolutely get that checked out. If what they're talking about is disturbing in any way, then that's always, or that they're having trouble like connecting to the flow of reality, of knowing what's real and what's not real. There's a little bit of like imaginative play when with children as well, but it's interesting because there's a different tone or frequency that you might pick up on when they're picking up on something, because you are also picking up on it and it's ringing as true for you. So just even being able to confirm, like, yeah, I feel like now that you mentioned great grandma, like I feel her too right now, and you can have a conversation about how you each perceive the presence of energy, and then also respecting like their sensitivity when you're out and about, and it's sort of like you might be in places where you're like they just have a bad feeling. And in my family, it's like if you have a bad feeling, you never need to explain it. We just leave, right? So sometimes, it's good. Everything feels good, and then other times it's like I just get the willies, about that, like going down that dark alley. Like I don't want to. And we just all listen to that feeling, because I feel like listening to your intuition is a big piece of why we have these extra senses. Is it gives us information about our environment, and you really want, I mean, I want to listen to that sensitivity because I feel that extra sense keeps me safe. And regardless of where you feel like that ESP feeling is coming from, it's filtering a whole bunch of information from a whole bunch of different sources. And I feel like, for me anyway, like I want to raise a kid that listens to his own heart, not everyone else's. That he has the tools to like tap into something deeper and wiser, and the ability to listen to like your own core self, I think is a big piece of what the philosophy of Reiki. And I feel like that always works out well for me and for others. And, we can learn that for ourselves and then we can share it with other people. So, yay. Okay, so I want to do the rainbow tree exercise with all of you, a little activity that I do with kids and adults in my class as well. It's a really fun, active way. Like most of the time, like kids have trouble sitting for still for very long. So meditation can be a bit of a challenge. You can always try meditating with your kids, just letting them see you meditate. It might be a very like you become the jungle gym You become the playground and then climb all over top of you as you're meditating. So it could be a real challenge when you're meditating and sitting, doing seated meditations. But the rainbow tree is a way that you can, teach a little bit about the chakras. And also it helps kids get grounded, fill up their chakras with energy, and then also fill up their aura with light. So the way you do it is you stand. So you'll start by standing and stretch up nice and tall. First, you're going to wiggle your toes into the ground. Plant your roots and let your roots get nice and deep. And you can do this right now as you're listening if you have space, is just wiggle your feet. Really plant your feet into the earth, grow your roots really down, nice and big, and then stretch your arms way up overhead. Wiggle your leaves, which are your fingers. You can sway your arms, which are your branches. So wiggle your leaves and your branches. You're the tree. Take up all that space and then bring your hands to the top of your head and fill the top of your head with purple light, violet light. And now bring your hands to your forehead and fill your forehead with dark blue light, indigo light. And then to your throat. Bring your hands to your throat and fill your throat with sky blue light. Then your hands to your heart and fill your heart with bright green. And just take a big breath. Then bring your hands to your belly, your upper belly, and fill in that space. Imagine yellow light like a big sun. Then your hands to your low belly and imagine bright orange light in your low belly. Then bring your hands to your hips and the sides of your hips and imagine a bright red light at your root, at the base of your spine. And then you can bring that light all the way down your legs, stretching it all the way down your legs. My son used to tell me that it turns back into earth color at your feet, right down to your feet. And then you're going to swoop your hands up, stretch them out to the sides, bring them right up over top of your head, filling up the space around you with bright, bright white light, right to 100% at the top of your head. You can clap your hands together above your head and then swoop your hands back down, creating a big, big bubble of light. And you can finish with your hands together in front of your heart. This is called gasho. There we go. That's the rainbow tree. You did it. You can do that every night before bed. You can do that. You can do that yourself. It's a really great way of like moving the grounding, taking up space, which always makes you feel more yourself. It's a power pose. It is the basics of bringing the energy into each of your chakras and imagining the chakra colors, bringing the energy down your legs. So just even touching your legs will help to ground you. And patting your legs is a good way of like bringing the energy lower into your body. And then putting lots of energy and light around your body, just paying attention to your aura. You can pat the edges of that aura, just putting a nice billowy cloud or a bubble. You can experiment with different colors in the aura. I really like white light around me with a rainbow around it. So with a violet edge to it. A violet light is the imagery that we work with a lot in Reiki. it's a symbol for this very highly protective frequency that will filter out anything else. So anything else that's coming at you will just hit the edge of your bubble and slide right off. So even discussing that with your kids of like, just ground, like get a connection with the earth, take a few big breaths, sit up nice and tall, and then imagine a clear bubble of light all around you. And that anything that might be anybody else's energy, their looks, you know, the words that other people are saying is just going to bounce off or slide off the edge of that aura, and that they can choose the energy environment they want to be in. So they can pick calm or peaceful or happy, and they can fill up with that calm, happy color. And that's something that you can do as well. It's really fun. It only takes a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes. You can spend a lot more time on it, but it's the basics of self healing, really. So, yeah. How'd that go for you, Kim?
Oh, I love it. I also love that you said like your son, told you that the color changes down at the feet. And because one really important thing I think is that we like let them have their own experience. My daughter likes to reach into the sky and grab the color and put it in the certain places and chakras on the body. Like that's kind of her visualization. That's what feels right for her. And it's really no different in Reiki class as well. Like my students will always say, "Is it okay that this is happening for me?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, it's okay. Like this is your experience." So you're building the relationship with the energy. And your relationship with the energy is going to be individual and different sometimes than what I am perceiving or feeling, right? So yeah, the biggest takeaway for me with this meditation is just let them express how it's coming in for them. And yeah, I think like a daily, even like a daily thing is they love it. Like it's not hard work.
Yeah. And it was something that we did because my son has a lot of scary nightmares. And this was sort of a routine that helped him have fewer nightmares or maybe no nightmares at all. And just because it's like you're setting the energy tone right before you go to bed, and you can affirm like I'm safe and protected in this bubble of light. So even if there are scary things, I'm in my bubble of light. So then they can take that into their dream. And it can be nice just as like a way of reconnecting. It's also a really nice distraction if the energy's a little too up. They've had, a really exciting day and they're a little bit over the top. This is a really great way of like moving the energy in a positive way. And it's a way of, grounding them without grounding them, like it's a way of getting their energy even through their body instead of it being like way up by their head or racing really fast. It can kind of help settle everything a little bit. So it's a good sort of thing you can interject if you're like, okay, I need a little bit of like, okay, we just need to like bring the temperature down a little bit. We need to like, do this little movement. It also like as a parent or caregiver, it gives you a little moment to like reset and regroup. And then you can then transition. It's a nice transition to go from like really supercharged, they just had something exciting. They had a whole bunch of sugar, like whatever it is, to move some energy and then transition into maybe a quiet, like coloring or reading a book or some other activity that's going to be a little bit like, lower activation. So it's like, the clutch that can move you through activities. So, yeah.
And it does feel like that as well. Like it does feel like a very like grounded and calming experience that does shift the energy. And even like you were saying about the aura and like being able to put whatever feeling that you need inside of your bubble. And that just made me think of like, there's some kids that are really anxious about going to school and especially like at the start of the year. So that might be a really great technique to use for like first thing in the morning as well. Just like before you go to school, we're just going to do this activity and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just sort of setting the tone so that, when you're leaving the house, you are in the energy you want to be in for the day. So if you're feeling nervous, you can say, well, what's the opposite of nervous? And if they don't know, it's like, well, maybe it's like calm or confident or happy or courageous or peaceful. You can suggest different words because putting words to a feeling is really difficult for adults. So, and being able to name or label the feeling can be really useful of like, how are you feeling? It looks like maybe you're feeling nervous or you're feeling a little worried or, or you're feeling a little like tired maybe. And then it gives, especially younger kids, it starts helping them build language around their feeling states. And then also like identifying the opposites of that feeling state, that they're not stuck. Kind of to your point earlier, it's like they don't know that these things are temporary. And when they're in them, they're so fully in that feeling, there's no end to it, So one of the things is parents and caregivers is you can provide your adult-sized perspective, which is that feelings come and go. There are no feelings that are bad. There's just useful and less useful, and that we can manage it and that we can choose how we would like to feel. We put our vote in, and then we practice bringing in that feeling state, kindness and respect for the feelings we already have. So you make space for how you're feeling, you let it move and shift. And as soon as there's space and there's movement and there's breath, then it starts shifting to something new. And that something new is usually something that feels a little bit more comfortable than discomfort. So we can focus on the strengths and bring in more of that energy that's nurturing and supportive. And then also not being afraid of the feelings, right? Like it's okay to have all of those feelings. Those feelings are normal and we'll take care of them. Amazing. Thanks, Kim. What a great chat.
I loved it. I loved it. I love talking about everything Reiki, and I love talking about kids as well. So
yeah,
awesome.
So good. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And check out more at lunaholistic.com. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Luna Holistic podcast. We're so grateful that you are here. If you've got a question, we'd love to hear from you. Go to lunaholistic.com/podcast and we'll answer you in an upcoming episode. Be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also please rate, because you never know where your little 5 stars will go to shine light into somebody's heart today. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.